a look.
Center here. Thank you all for coming. We left the time to mill around and ask staff or look at drawings and graphs and information, so it's just simply your meeting. And we'll discuss whatever you want to discuss. We gave you a bit of an agenda if you want to discuss these specific items. I could give you a couple of updates. If you're curious about the big sign on the back wall there, the Minister of Tourism, RMLA, attended on the weekend and on Friday and gave us a check for $54,000 towards the town square, village square. It's part of the BC government's Spirit Square program. And this lets us kick off. You know, we've had a lot of citizens wanting to either buy a tree or a bench, but we needed the plan before people could use it as a commemorative part of that square for their family. And so we're very excited about that. Now we can start that program. We can spread the word that if anybody wants a family tree or bench put in there, now's the time to let our planner know.
Can we match that in labor, or do we have to match that in actual capital?
In kind.
In kind. Oh,
In
good.
fact, it could be a lot of the donations that we'll get from the public would count as matching for that. We can use, if we had to, some of the downtown beautification money from SLAG. So we're assured of having the money, it's covered. But I don't think we will have to use much. I think most of the community have certainly expressed that they'd like to do something in there, whether it's volunteer labor or buy a tree or whatever. So, pretty excited about that. I think we'll finally have our square.
Will the benches end up being designed so that they're cohesive in the whole of the village rather than having different kinds in different spots?
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
Can bench designed so that they're cohesive?
Well, I think there's 2 benches in there now that were designed by the planning department and the committee that designed the park. I presume will stick to the same.
I thought they were just, hadn't had any planning done there.
Where's our planner? Is he here still? Judy, what about benches?
We'll be looking at a full street furniture program. I think we look for something that is a Cumberland standard, what we start to have throughout the village, and then we'll experiment with that.
Is the community engagement in that plan through the beautification committee or through parks?
There was a committee struck for that square.
And that's a committee of the village?
Pardon? Yes.
It's a committee of the
Yes.
village?
Yes. And they put forward a plan, which our planner took over, fixed up and put it back out to the public for feedback before we approved it. So I think now we've got the plan.
That's what you're going with?
Yeah.
Megan, the 3 options went to I believe the open house was in November at the post office, and those were overwhelmingly the comments was for that design.
So there doesn't continue to be feedback in the new plan now that these dollars are here? That's the
Probably
plan?
be some details. It's a concept plan, right? It's got some working plan details you can see down at the end there. But the form of it is...
Just offer again, as I did earlier on, and contributing in some way to the planning portion that includes a performance venue there, because it's been planned funny a few times, and then it keeps showing up sort of looking like something that won't work as a stage. If you have any interest
Come and
in...
talk to me.
Yeah, I know, it's not you, it's just an ongoing process. It's come and gone, and it's kind of some of the problems that got run into even in the Sims Pavilion. There's certain structures that work really well as a performance.
This doesn't have a structure, by the way. It's a lot more
Or any cover of any kind, yeah. Okay, I'll come see you though.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks.
Could we talk a bit about the proposals for the Chinatown site, being as that deadline is fairly soon? And I'm wondering whether any progress has been made in looking at the legal and financial implications, which I believe staff are going to do.
And I'll let staff do some of that, but that's a good segue because that's what I wanted to talk about.
Oh, good.
First off, it needs to be made clear, the whole Chinatown thing is, I know some people have assumed we've made some decision to support this group putting in a proposal from Vancouver, and there's no such thing. We said we'll listen to proposals, we'll listen to proposals. I think the council has indicated pretty strong support for the principle of what the ad hoc committee said. What I can tell you is Saturday last, I met with the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of, the Federal Minister of Heritage and Culture. And he was, Jim Allen, he was extremely pleased with how Cumberland's approaching our historical Asian connections. And he's very interested in that site. He's interested in the Lantern Festival, the Lantern Making Course, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even when I said we're not interested in a grant on the Lantern Making Course, we want you to sponsor it. We anything matching, we want it all. And actually, he's personally, he comes from Kimberley, so he understands the coal mining connections in the small town. And he went on at length to the chagrins of my neighbors, because he met with the three mayors to discuss issues we have in the valley. He was really taken with this Asian connection and wants to talk more and suggested he would have some money towards it. So really excited about that. As for the plan, I think council has stated that it's the end of September. By then we have to have a decision. We've looked for and are getting some feedback on these other proposals. And it isn't a case of us saying one or the other, by the way. We don't, if we look at a proposal, doesn't mean we've accepted anything in it. It would be whatever. Like I say, I think you know council's meetings at the moment, but we have to be fair and open-minded. So I suspect it'll be on the agenda before the end of September for a decision.
So could you tell us one good thing about the one from Vancouver? About why the council would think it would be a good move to go with that one?
Well, number one, council has said no such thing. Council has said, if you recall, we would be open to proposals till the end of June or till June, and we would make a decision by September. I don't know of any councillor or myself that have said, we like that one or don't like this one or anything. We said we'd look at them, and we look at them, we will.
Are there other ones?
No, there's just one other one.
Right. This, there's the ad hoc one and this.
That's right.
And that's all we're saying.
That's right. I can tell you there's absolutely parts of that I have no desire for. We'll listen as fair as we can.
Fred, pardon me. These are two very drastically different, and they're both filled with ideas of what they would like to see happen. I'm sure when you're making your decisions as council on these, I would think we need, because it's such a sensitive area, I think we need more public support. And I would like to see, or I'd like to see council assures two things. One, that these people come and do a presentation, or we have a more of a public setting on an understanding of how they see this happening, and as well as the ad hoc committee. I mean, they've done a very good write-up, and it's certainly thicker, and there's totally different ideas. But there's got to be a little bit more, and I think the public should be more involved in both in the decision-making. And number two, the second thing I'd like to see is that council assures us that any council member that has a conflict of interest on these lands remove themselves from the voting process, or that council assures us that there is no conflict at all amongst themselves when they're making decisions on this land.
Okay. We can certainly put those forward to council.
Would you like that in writing, or
If we
was that
want to hear,
sufficient?
well, if we want, oh no, you don't need to put it in writing. If we want to hear the presentations by these parties to the public, I don't know that we could do that before the end of September.
I don't want to
I
hear
think
them
we should
present this.
postpone. Well, I would like to know. I would absolutely like to know. I mean, I'm one that would like to actually walk through and see what's on the inside of the door before I totally shut it, because we might be missing something that's incredible. And it might, and the other thing is too, is to me, this looks like it's just ideas. This looks like the beginning of a conversation. Let's sit at the table. Here's a whole pile of ideas. Throw them both in a pile and cipher through them. See what we come up with best for us. To totally eliminate one or the other, I think we'd be selling ourselves short. And unfortunately, we're going to need more time to do that. So I would suggest that you delay that deadline, because you don't have enough time at the end of the month to accomplish that. Because if this is considered public input, it's not sufficient. We can't make, neither I believe could either of you, fairly make decisions on those lands based on these pieces of paper. I think we need to see some more concrete stuff, some more assurances on what we agree on and what we don't agree on. We should have the opportunity to say, yes, the dollar is a good deal, or no, it's not, it's garbage. And see if we can't rifle through all of it to come up with what's the best. I don't think this is gonna do it for us.
Well, in reality, Leona, staff was supposed to come to council with a report on the one from the Sino-Canada ones. They were supposed to come out with a report to see whether it's even feasible with the covenants that's on the title, but there has been no such report at council yet. And that's been since the end of June. So they had all summer to work on it.
So we definitely need more time to make appropriate decisions on these lands.
Well, usually you don't sell something for $1 that you get nothing in return
But that's
for.
only just a suggestion, there's only one thing.
Okay,
We have
we're
the
here.
opportunity to
Let's
say
not
no.
turn it into an argument.
I'd like to make a comment. We structured a committee, an ad hoc committee. And I think that they have put an awful lot of time and a lot of effort into this. Great presentation. We've already had that document for some time. I've read it. And as the mayor said, we've done enough on this thing. If we don't make a decision pretty quick and get off our butts, it'll be another year gone by. And the mayor said that we will be making a decision on the end of September at the next official meeting. And there's enough information out there right now. The ad hoc committee are just itching to go on this thing. So I don't know why you would want to go further and clutter up what they've done today, because the minute you open that door, you might get somebody from outside that's going to think totally different from what that ad hoc committee has done today. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't support your concept, but again, I look forward to making that my decision at the end of September.
Well, you can correct me, Mayor Bates, but isn't the deadline already for the proposals? The submission of the proposals?
There can't be any more proposals.
No more proposals.
That's right, so there is, if the door does open, there isn't anybody else squeaking through because they're gonna miss the deadline. So we're
No,
talking about
but-
two individuals.
I think I've got your point,
Okay.
and I'll bring it to council, and if they choose, as a council, to extend that and we discuss it, then so be it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I say something? Well, if, with the Sino-Can-Am proposal, that was strictly a commercial proposal, and is there not some commercial land somewhere within Cumberland's village boundaries that they could access a lot easier, quicker, and to better purpose than a park area? And if the council wanted to support the Sino-Can-Am group for some reason, that put it on some commercial zone land rather than park land.
At the highway.
I've made those comments to some of these people. I'm just trying to stay open-minded. You know, because they read the articles, there is some room for commercial down there if it was in tune with the heritage, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think what they proposed meets that. Whether you want to talk, whether council decides they want to talk to them about some other version, then that'll be up to the council. Your point's well taken. Well taken.
So do you think when council talks on the 27th of September that they will actually talk about why they vote the way they do, or are they just going to be voting yes and no again where we don't get any results of why you vote the way you do?
I'd like to think council votes the way it does because it's brought to items in discussion before it ever got to council. And that, I don't tell the councillors they have to tell you why they voted. That's up to them individually.
Can I just say, I fully support the ad hoc proposal, and I know that these folks put their heart into it. They've put a lot of work down there. They've done, broom clearing, they've done research, and they formed a very, very good group that we can be very proud of, with Cumberland's best intentions at heart. And May, I know that you have a letter that John and you put together. Would you like to maybe go over that for the group? I think it's very important that the group have their submission.
Would you like me to read it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Sure.
Sit.
Go
Sure you
ahead.
can.
Well, on behalf of John Leung, co-chair of the Cumberland Chinatown and #1 Japanese Town Heritage Park Ad Hoc Committee, we are conveying these comments. John is not available to be here tonight, but he would like to give his comments concerning the future plans of Cumberland Village's historic #1 Japanese town and Chinatown. On April 2006, the ad hoc committee presented the proposal of their historic park plan in a 35-page brief to the mayor and council. February 10th, 2007, the ad hoc committee also held an open house information day in Cumberland, which was well attended. The basic concept of this historic park projection study concluded that the Chinatown and #1 Japanese town areas should be best left as parkland with minimal development except for trails, lookouts, signage, storyboards, and gardens. It was felt that there was a necessity to respect the greater value of the present natural environment. The Japanese of the Toronto area, who are mostly former residents of Cumberland, and with the Cumberland Chinatown Picnic Group in Vancouver, also former Chinatown residents, are all in favor of this historic park plan proposal. The ad hoc committee co-chair John Leung would also like to present these thoughts for the historic Cumberland Chinatown area. With agreement from the ad hoc group, John hopes to have an information rest shelter with an open-air canopy. This shelter would include a map of Chinatown, pictures of significant Chinatown buildings, plus picnic tables and benches. Friends and relatives of former local residents and visitors have arrived in Cumberland hoping to find some reminder of historic #1 Japanese town and Chinatown. Except for the new entrance signs, there is little remaining to indicate much of the previously thriving communities. Fortunately, the Cumberland Museum is a good source of historical information for the many visitors. Because of the diminishing number of local pioneers and the valuable legacy that should not be forgotten in both historic communities, John feels that we cannot afford to have any more delays. He would like to ask that the Village Council give us quick consideration and grant us a green light to begin our planned projects. John has communicated with a number of people who have indicated positive support with our plans. Thank you, signed John Leung, co-chair, and members of the Cumberland Chinatown and #1 Japanese Town Ad Hoc Committee.
I wish I'd have had that Saturday, but I think I covered that territory. In fact, I can tell you that the parliamentary secretary he might have even overstated this, but when I told him about this group that was working together, he said, you know, I think that's the only one in Canada where you've got Japanese and Chinese people on a committee actually doing something. He said, together, he did.
Well, there's probably a few multicultural groups in Vancouver where that might be happening.
He said, what do you attribute this to? I said, there was no politicians on it. Anyway, he was very complimentary, and those are good comments, and I'm sure they're all part of what will form council's decision. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, is anything going to be done about Blacktown? Is there any development of parkland or anything there?
I think it's all private land now.
Is it?
We don't have any part of it in the
Okay.
community, so we would have no say unless the residents decided.
There's a marker, heritage care.
Yeah, we have a Karen.
Whichever direction council chooses to go with the Chinatown and Japanese town site, will there be any requirement in the future on, say, whichever group does it, of any kind of development or building of whether the temporary shelters or permanent shelters or things like that? Will anything else come back into a public process around things like that? Will there be a need to do that?
Do you mean to add on to whatever, if the ad hoc committee is accepted, if their report's accepted? Are you suggesting if they decide?
Well, in the letter, there was the proposal of a shelter.
Okay. Are you saying should that go to the public too?
Yeah, or
So
is there a requirement for that? Like, do they need a development permit to do that?
They probably would need a development permit, but I presume if the ad hoc committee's report was accepted, accepted as they presented it with these plans built into it. You wouldn't have to revisit it every year. Obviously, if there was something major or something that was, they changed that wasn't anticipated in the report we read, they'd have to come back to a public process.
Like if they wanted to put, like with a shelter, maybe, you know, there might be the need to put in washrooms.
We do
You know,
need
or something like that.
Then that would have to come back to, certainly to at least
Yeah.
staff, because we'd have to get plumbing and water and sewer and all that, so there'd be some issues.
Oh, compost.
Composting toilets.
I'm trying to understand why the Sino, what I know is the Chang proposal, is even being considered. It's the history of the land. It's the fact that it was barely 10 years ago when it was decided it was inappropriate for the Rod and Gun Club to be there, and the council decided to end the lease. I understand in our OCP process we designated it as a park. I understand in the 30 years I've lived here, there's been a big push at times to even consider making it having federal historic status here. We're talking about culturally sensitive lands, ecologically sensitive wetlands. And I had thought that as a citizen and as a council, we had all agreed it was going to be parkland. I didn't think we had to keep revisiting that. Now, I understand parkland can have development. I understand that parkland can have commercial development even. Many of our federal parks do. But it is with the intent that people enjoy recreation. And it is with the intent, and what I've understood over the years too, is that the wish has always been that that park, that those lands there are more or less kept in its wilderness state with very little, you know, over and over again I've been at meetings. Leslie Baird, years ago, we had a group of about 50 people not in this room saying, what do we want for the west end of the town? And this was before and so I just, there's a schism for me. I don't understand at all. I guess I've been full of resentment over the last 6 weeks that proposal came in and that we're even having to respond to that proposal, because I had thought we'd gone beyond sort of these, I mean, we could have wild interests in that park. Anybody can come up with an idea for it, but I thought we'd reached a point where we were cohesive as a council and as citizens, that we were cohesive with the ad hoc group, certainly in terms of our intent for that land. So I'm just bewildered, actually, that we have to sort of visit this proposal that actually looks like it was dashed off, you know, at midnight to be submitted 5 minutes later. And so I guess in summary, what I really want to say is that the ad hoc group spent more than a year working on the proposal. They put an excellent proposal together. They consulted with the administration. They consulted with other citizens. They made a formal presentation to council last spring. And in all this time, how things filter down in small towns, it's been well supported. And I had thought it was a matter of the mayor and council really needing to spend some time looking at it, looking at the budgetary concerns. And that was pretty much about it. So, not to get off the point, I can't say loud and passionate enough to say adopt the ad hoc proposal. It is a good proposal. It's a great sounding board. We've talked about it. It's a great starting point. It doesn't lock anybody in, but the intent, the mission statement is true, the values that it supports and the values that I've heard people say about that parkland. Let's adopt it and move forward.
Okay. Well, to answer your question that you originally came up with, council did pass a resolution to consider proposals. That's why we're considering proposals.
Were there terms of reference read on that?
Pardon me?
Were there any terms of reference, just on, is this just the same thing?
Within the land,
Yeah.
within the concept of how the land was designated in the first place, that it would have to meet the heritage and cultural values.
Okay, so that was
If
the
these
terms
people
of
think
reference.
they've done that, they have a right to think that, just because you don't agree with them. Whether, they can put in a proposal, whatever they think fits that package. Anybody here can do that. You may put forth a proposal that I'm appalled with, but you still have a right to have it heard.
And when
I
that
think
proposal
that's
was
an
put
obligation.
forward, it took over a year to get
Sorry,
any kind of
I'm
response. I'm wondering why that was.
Pardon me?
The ad hoc committee made the proposal more than a year before it received a response. And why was that that year? What was that year all about?
Well, I think that's been explained over and over and over again, that we were looking at all options. I was trying to answer this lady's question, but
Sir.
I think it's not as complicated as is being suggested. Council said we would hear proposals. That proposal came, and I said this publicly when I visited when the China Council General came here, and we took a tour down there. They suggested they would have a proposal that would meet all our needs and be a fabulous development to be part commercial, but to meet those heritage needs. So if you have a proposal, put it to council.
Except I think right tonight.
Nothing more than that. Sorry, I said if you have a proposal, put it to council. That's the right. There's nothing wrong with that.
And it was invited, so fair enough, you invited it.
And they sent it.
And tonight we were all invited here to give you comments about what we felt about things. And one of the things we were brought here tonight about was to give comments on that. So I think when people make comments, we shouldn't be defending the fact that they're saying that they like one or the other better, and that you keep sort of defending the process of council when people have the right to say, this is the only time we get to talk to you. But you're still saying why you shouldn't be listening to us. So, I mean,
You're just making words up to suit your own argument. I've made it very clear, council has not made any promises, decisions, or anything. We've gone through a process, we're listening to you. I have not once said I disagree with your opinion on this proposal. I've said it'll be put to council as it's supposed to be.
I actually totally trust
It
that council's going to make.
doesn't have to be an adversarial process.
And
You're
to-
assuming something.
To say out loud, I absolutely trust that this council wouldn't, for a minute, entertain this proposal over this proposal. And I fully trust that the right decisions can be made at that council meeting because of the incredible people that have been involved in this project. I actually completely trust that the right decisions can be made at that meeting.
Never trust a politician.
That's, well, when you express trust, you also extend an arm and say, we trust that you're going to make,
I know
because
what
it's
you're
so
saying.
abundantly clear.
Yeah,
Like, that's what, and I understand we don't need, to me, it's so abundantly clear. We'll have our own little revolution in Lynch Council if it goes the other way. But at this point, it's so abundantly clear what the
That's
appropriate
always
thing
a
to do
popular thing
is.
to do.
And Fred's made it pretty clear the way they're leaning, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm-
he can't really come out and say they've made the decision yet,
That's a process issue.
It would
Right.
be highly
but he's made it
inappropriate.
clear the way they're leaning,
but that's
so.
just one person on council. There's another 4 people.
I don't think Dale or Bronco or Glenn are gonna go the other way either.
Well, now you're just providing conjecture.
It's more fun.
So I have a question in the water bylaw.
Sorry, someone's ahead of you here.
Has there been an exploration of the legal and financial implications of both proposals?
We've asked that to look into that, obviously.
And that, before
That
next
will be
week, that
coming
will
in the
be.
report
Okay.
before council gives consideration to.
I just thought it would be useful for the public to be aware of the implications in terms of our response as well.
Good point.
After listening to the discussion here, that I have a question. My question is, why would the council move a resolution to consider, or why didn't they move a resolution to adopt?
Well, that's not a very democratic way to do things. You should at least hear if there's other options.
Pardon?
You should always hear if there are other options to what's being proposed to you. I
That's
think
pretty
what
standard.
democracy's all about. It's that simple. There's nothing more than that.
No, I know you're saying
Sorry, I
this.
think we had,
I was just curious on the water user fees. It's saying that in 2008 residential will go up to 130, and in 2009, the year after the election, it would go up to 156. And the car wash would finally start paying something towards the water, which it hasn't to date, even though there is a thing already called unidentified, which I wasn't quite sure what that meant. But I'm just curious why it doesn't include any of the industrial lands. There's nothing in the water bylaw about the fact that we're going to be charging industrial anything, so it means the debarker gets their water for free, IPI, all of those places that are using our water system, and any future industrial ones would never have to pay anything. And I'm just curious why that wouldn't be in there.
I don't think there's any indication anybody's getting anything for free.
Oh, is it going to get amended to include something to do with industrial then, or
It'll
no?
be amended as it needs to be.
It looks right now like I haven't been following it, obviously, as close as Kate, 'cause Kate follows things very closely. But it appears that the industrial businesses would pay then the same rate as other or businesses. When you just come in, I came in to just read it and read the bylaw. So, and there are existing businesses, so I would have the same question as the taxpayer. What are the people that are using huge amounts of water paying in differential to a business downtown? And just to understand that, because when you see, yeah.
Well, one of the ways we did to accomplish that without necessarily breaking everybody out was after you use what is the norm for a given residence, the rates go up exponentially.
And do we have
So
the
if you're
mechanisms
industrial
in
or
place
what-
to actually track that?
No, but that's just once you get on.
Sorry,
the
Kate,
meters.
why do you keep interrupting when people are trying to
Because you're
answer
talking
something?
off topic.
Well, that's what I'm
Oh, I
asking.
see.
No,
Okay.
That's my question.
I thought I was answering your
Yeah.
question. Thanks. I
It's-
would have thought someone with your vast knowledge of the system would know some
Well,
basics
in
about
the bylaw,
maintenance.
it actually doesn't talk about that, other until you get into watering meeting bylaw, which is a different bylaw.
Do you want me to answer your question?
I
Megan?
think, well,
Or are you satisfied?
well, I'm not, I'm wondering, I don't think we have the mechanisms to actually measure use, like people still wash their cars in their driveways. I was kind of looking at this as a
we don't right
larger
now, but all
eco
this is-
issue, and I'm actually a person who's in support of metering, and I believe that we should monitor our consumption and pay for what we use, and I
Yeah.
have beliefs about that. So
Yeah.
as a person who tries to have water conservation in my own household and who has a flat rate that I'm paying, I was just looking for clarification around the mechanisms that are used to track how much water is used for, as Kate had brought up when we were talking,
Yep.
a debarker, a recycling depot, a car wash, and do we, I understand that it would be based on metering, but we don't have meters, and I know the village is also staff and resource thin on all kinds of levels, so is it actually possible for us right now to be measuring that?
Well, today it isn't, but
Okay.
the meters will be part of this whole package. And it was anticipated they would be in place for part of that package. And what we found, one of the models we used was Pueblo, Colorado. And to put it in perspective for you, a gentleman just built a swimming pool and decided to fill it in the summer. And it cost him $1,700 per water.
In the here, or you mean in another?
Pueblo.
Oh, Pueblo, okay.
And the same model as we're talking about. Whether you used it for a swimming pool, a log debarker, a car wash, you pass this certain point of usage, the costs are doubling, quadrupling, and going up.
So when does the village have in plan, when is the village going to have the resources or the infrastructure in place to actually be doing that measuring? What's
Well,
that
we've
time?
started the process for
Okay.
for the metering. Maybe you could touch on that, I mean, where we're at.
Bob Hostrom is just completing the draft report, and I think he's proposed to come to council on the meeting of October the 9th to present that draft water meter study report to council.
And what he was going to study, correct me if I'm wrong, is not whether or not we should have water meters, it's what type,
Model to
what
use.
reading process, how should we access that information? So it's all being done as a package. And you do have to measure your.
Well, I don't want to pay, like, I watch a 300% increase in things related to water and sewer rates. As a resident, I'm a person who's happy to pay my taxes, and I also know that we need to cap our consumption. And so I'm not interested in seeing those rate increases happen
Without
in
capping.
front of us looking at usage. I think they have to happen concurrently, otherwise we just perpetuate some of the same problems.
Well, you would have made the same decision we did probably.
Well, I believe that metering is just a tax grab, for one thing. And cutting back people that are wasting water is, I believe that they shouldn't be wasting water. But does it not leave a lot of water extra for developers when you do the metering thing?
Well, why do you think that is?
Well, are you trying
That's
to...
a loaded question.
Are you trying to...
Because, sir, it is known, and right in Royston, metering reduced the consumption by 40%.
But you're charging
It's not
more.
a tax grab.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We're getting less money out of Royston right now.
But that's probably because they fixed a lot of leaks within the village
Partly
system
that,
too.
yeah.
And I think right now we could put in all the meters we wanted to in the village, but if it wasn't put in along Dunsmuir Street, where the actual municipal services are flowing through, we still wouldn't catch all of the leaks.
Well,
But this
it
is the
does
flat
catch,
rate that I was talking about.
it does catch leaks off your property as well, that the village would have to deal with them. And they found that in Royston. The system works. You can check with any municipality that's ever put it in. It does reduce water consumption. It does discover leaks that are on your property as well as village property. And it gives you the opportunity to fix the system and conserve water. And it isn't a tax grab because
Yes, it is. You're, right off the bat, you're doubling for next year without the meters. Our
Well,
cost
you
of
have
water.
a infrastructure that's failing. And
Well,
who
shouldn't the
pays for it?
developer, some of the developers pay some of this extra?
Well, that's part of the discussions you're having in the public. But
It's getting pretty heavy. They're tripling the sewer costs and doubling the water costs.
well, if you start comparing them to other communities, we're still not there. You've been getting a bargain for so many years.
Well,
And it's
we
understandable,
should
that's
get a
not a
bargain.
criticism.
I want to keep getting a bargain if I can figure out how to conserve it because we need the house.
That's right.
But the other thing is it's saying in the one report under sewer that it costs $1.73 for 1,000 to deliver water to a site, but yet we're only charging Royston Improvement District $1.22 for 1,000. So why are we charging them roughly 51 cents less than what it costs for us to get it to their pipes?
The Royston issue has been one for quite a while we've been dealing with. They were grossly undercharged.
Well, this is the new proposed rate is still 51 cents below.
Yeah, and it's still, I think, more than double what they're paying now. Like it's coming out rapidly.
So how long would that go for at 51 cents, 1,000 less than what?
We're in negotiations. Andy, where would we put that, what date when we review that? Royston rate, the Royston bulk rate,
Yeah. For water?
yeah, the review date.
Oh, the review date, yeah, their agreement actually ended in July, so we're in the process of negotiating.
But what
with
we're
them to
proposing
go
is a
up.
new rate.
Yeah.
We were also proposing that we revisit it more often.
Right.
Excuse me, I just can't remember the exact date.
Would it be like $1.22 for the next 5 years? Or does it go up every year?
It could be, we're looking at, we haven't finished signing the contract, but we're looking at doing it more often, reviewing that rate.
I'm just curious though whether before you even sign the contract, whether it would come to the public so we can see what's going on.
I don't know that, I mean, there's a limit to what you can take to public and not be just holding a meeting every night in the public. We're looking out for the best interest of Cumberland, getting a whole lot more than they've been getting for their water and fixing our infrastructure.
Except if you look at the regional district.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you got into that water thing. I thought it might slip by. I'm interested in that laundry down here again. 14 years ago when I moved out here, they were on a contract for free water for 5 years. After 5 years, they were supposed to be paying, and then when I landed here, it was 2 years after that yet, they were still on free water. But we had got the water then. But there's still no reason why they should have been getting free water 2 years after the agreement was signed. But that's beside the point. The point I want to make now.
Laundry doesn't get free water.
Pardon?
Laundry does not get free water.
I didn't say they're getting free water now. 14 years ago when I came out here, were they getting free water?
They had a special rate as an incentive to build a laundry, to
Right.
start with.
Right.
That's right.
That was a special
But they
rate.
weren't getting free water.
That's true. But well, there was lots of water then, because in the first place, we didn't have as many people as we got now. But things are changing. We don't have the water now. And the laundry down there has got recycling machinery in there. They've never used it, to my knowledge, they've never used it. And I asked you at the last meeting that if they were using it, you couldn't tell me that they were or they weren't because you didn't know. We do know now whether or not they're using recycling water.
I know they've been put on notice that they would be wise to be using recycling water because the new rates that go up exponentially are going to make it economically feasible for them to put those recyclers in place.
Okay, that was my question. When we were going to make these people, I mean, there's no reason why we should be subsidizing a laundry that the whole province of BC is using.
Agreed.
And for too many years we've been doing that. So they're going to have to start paying their share then.
It's not unusual for communities to subsidize an industry to come and create some jobs in your community, so I don't think we have to apologize for the past.
No,
they're not getting free now, just go.
I went to the Union Bay meeting the other night on Kensington and the regional district water system, and number one, I was wondering why there has been such a lack of information on the regional district water system if I've heard that supposedly Cumberland Council supports it, that's one. And also some of the information there made me a little nervous that all of our water licenses are going to be turned over to the regional district. They're going to be the wholesaler of the water, while we're going to be the retailer, yet we have no idea what that wholesale cost from them is going to be. We've, no offense to Union Bay, but we've got a heck of a lot more of a water system than Langley Lake, and they're not going to pay us a damn thing for improvements and all of the stuff. I know we've got repairs that we have to do, but I'm just wondering what the benefit for Cumberland is to lose our autonomy to permit a whole bunch of development in another area that isn't going to be paying us taxes. And the last thing is they said that there will not be a regional district water system without Kensington, and that it's not going to happen for maybe 10, 15 years, but they'll be taking the licenses before that. So I would like some information on that
first
whole
off,
thing.
Some of the information you haven't got is because we haven't got it. We've asked the minister for clarification as to what she meant in her letter by a regional water system focused on Comox Lake. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's pretty close to what was said. And what we've asked is, does that mean you're saying we're all going to get water out of Comox Lake, or does that mean you're going to have a regional management system for all the water systems combined? Because they would mean very different things to us. Does it mean that if this thing takes 10 years to develop, that we're supposed to sit and wait and shut down in the meantime? Nobody has said, by the way, they're taking Cumberland's license. They're taking Union Bay, I think.
They're taking all the licenses.
They weren't, well, I haven't seen that. And they didn't say to Union Bay, we'll take your license, according to the regional district. They said, if you want us to pay to make this a regional management system, you'll have to give up your license.
Well, I think that if they're talking about Cumberland down in Union Bay, and we're taxpayers in Cumberland, then we need Graham Ferris here, we need whatever, we don't especially need Star, but she was there, and they had a guy from the ministry. We need those facts, because this is a big, big deal, and we have value of water up in those hills, and I want to make sure that we have enough for in our boundaries, not just a bunch of housing down there. I mean, I think it's going to turn into a fight before it gets settled.
Well, we don't know that. And first off, what I'm saying, Star was there because she's the chair of the regional district. That issue in Kensington and Union Bay isn't directly affecting us.
Well, it does.
If we get the answer of the clarification of what the minister meant, and we've already, council has instructed me to meet with the ministry of community services to ask those very questions as to what our concerns are about our water system and our future. And that's what we'll do. And when we get that information and ask one of their staffers or the minister to come to a council meeting, in an open public council meeting, and tell us, what do you mean by all this and what's the implications to our community? So we are on top of that.
I attended that meeting when Kensington, that agreement went to the regional district in Cameron. So, you know, till it comes out from the regional district. I basically can't say that much. But 6 points, and they're everything you said, is what I wrote down. And as the mayor's already indicated, council talked about this the other night and instructed him to set up a meeting with Ida Chong to explain what the end run is going to be. Because as I sat there, as you know, I was taking the mayor's place at that committee meeting, I asked the same thing. I said, if the government is going to legislate, or I call it a Comox Valley system. I like that better than regional. But anyway, if they're going to do that, we should know that right away. If we spend money on our system, what's going to happen? Because maybe the regional district right now, the new one, when it gets set up, and that's something else. Carol, as you know, it's going to take a long time to set up this split in the regional district. But all these questions were put on the table, and they will be to the minister, because Kensington, as you probably heard in Union Bay, at least I heard at the meeting I was at, $17 million, which they will get back when the regional district takes the system over. They won't lose that money. And I said, well, you know, it's really ironic, because where I come from, we could be in the same boat if we get legislated into this regional Comox Valley water system. So what's going to happen to Cumberland? Do we sit stagnant with the development? We need the water. We have to move now, which is what we're doing. But I think we have to be very careful down the road with what's going to happen, and only she can tell us what the outcome is going to be.
Well,
so I've got all the questions, the very ones that you're asking.
Graham Ferris spoke about you know, the fact that they eventually would like to join up Campbell River and the whole thing to have a huge swath of development all down this coast of Vancouver Island. I'm just wondering where that vision comes from, you know, because nobody's asked the people that actually live here.
Well, I can tell you that vision of the swath of development from Campbell River down this coast of the island hasn't been a discussion at the RD.
Well, it's in the Van West report, because there it talks about the fact that when they would do the whole Kensington report, if they did the huge flood up here of another dam, that then it would hold 58,000 people between Cumberland, Royston, and Union Bay. So I think it's part of, Carol, what's been going on in behind closed meetings, like the one question that was posted on the Cumberlander. What is it that they're meeting in closed doors to sell? I think it's probably or what.
Well, the last point I want to make is they spoke about the current water committee, and you know, the water committee could be running that regional district water system, and people have to understand that it's a weighted vote. Courtney and Comox carry the weight on that board, and I sure as heck don't want, with all due respect to our friends in those communities all of a sudden directing where the water that we've always had in this community is going to go. And water's going to be a valuable commodity. That whole thing about the RD is going to be the wholesaler, we sure know the wrecking ball's coming to the RD. So it's a bunch of baloney. And we need to talk about issues like RD water systems and amalgamation and the community plan that we want for this valley out in the open, not behind closed doors, because it's not right. People can retire from politics and nobody here will know what the heck is going on, you know. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Nichols worth. They're good points, and as Bronco said, we are on the same page. We're trying to make sure that we get those answers of what the minister's intent is before we got to know what she's saying before we can start arguing.
Does she even know there's multiple water sources in the valley? That kind of stuff.
I'd like to think so. Sorry, I'm trying to answer her questions.
It looks like a starry dream to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing I can say will
I'd
change
like,
that. So.
I'd like to know whether, if the regional district gets control of our water, how long is the regional district going to exist? Is Chow going to come along out of the blue and dissolve the regional district? And if that happens, what happens to our water?
Well, Mr. Mayor? I'll answer that right now. You're talking about regional district getting control of our water. All water licenses are controlled by the province anyway. So you have to make application for a water license through the province. So if they don't want to give it to you, they're not going to give it to you. So if Ida Chong, or whoever the minister is going to be, is going to set up a regional plan and say this is where everybody's going to go, I don't think Cumberland Council or anybody is going to say, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Because they control the water in the province of British Columbia. And that's the bottom line.
But what we can do is try and make sure that our concerns are looked after in any process. And it may be a pipe dream or naive, but I believe they have our interest at heart as well. Why wouldn't they? There's no
I don't think
desire
we
to
should
destroy our
lay down on the
Big money in selling the water.
Yeah, there's big money
It's
in
not yours
water.
to sell. It's not
the
the
commons.
village, it's the province's water.
Not yet.
Okay, well, we've heard your points.
Well, they're not gonna-
And they're good points. We're just as concerned as you are.
The matter of new hookups for water is of interest to me because I noticed that Cove Valley Estates is advertising on their sign the further sale of 57 lots as I drive up there. So I want to know if there has been negotiated with them an assurance that those 57 lots they're trying to sell have access to water connections.
We are abiding by the bylaw and the motion we put forward. Do you know, any special?
I can answer that. At the time that we passed the resolution, we said that it applies to any new development that's not currently in stream.
Right.
And anything that was already approved and had preliminary layout review by the approving officers was considered in stream, and that was already accounted for in the calculations as to how many water connections were out there. So it's a pending one that was already given
That
approval.
was already part of it. Okay.
So this isn't where they've gone and switched their ones that were in stream for the ones that they were dreaming about in phase 4 or whatever.
Okay.
Just curious too, when you're gonna actually discuss the design guidelines to lot 4, 6, 8, and 9 of Trilogy, because there's been no discussion at a council meeting about them, about the fact that design guidelines form part of the zoning bylaw. So then with what it says, they're just stuck with it.
I can tell you that council's of a mind right now that we're not discussing, considering, rather is a better word, anything with Trilogy until Trilogy presents us with an MOU of what they want to offer us.
So we haven't got anything in where they've said this is what we're willing to offer yet.
Talked lots, I guess, but I haven't seen anything in writing, and we're saying enough's enough.
So when they finally come up with, before it goes any further, there would at least be a statement of what they're willing to pay to
It'll
change
just be
the
a
village
statement.
that drastically.
It can be read in the public. It'll be part of the process. We have said from day one, if you recall, we have to have that before we even go to the public hearing, obviously. So it'll be part of the public hearing.
But couldn't we have it part of the public process before it had to go to the hearing, so people could talk about
We've
why?
commonly done that, yes, we can. I don't think that's a big problem. Okay.
Can I make one other comment about the roads over there? Just when I was talking with our planner, I was saying I'm interested with the roundabouts, but part of the problem with roundabouts when you're driving into Courtney, at least at Willamar, is there's a lot of people that have never been actually trained to use a roundabout. So I don't know if it will necessarily be a good thing. It worries me that at Union, or at, I guess it's Alverston at Peace Park, it just says it'll be green space. It doesn't say it'll still continue being parkland.
Well, I don't think there was an intention to change that. In fact, one of the things that, and that's the first I've seen of those two, by the way, they just.
Yeah, they were just saying they were just.
They're good ideas. We do need to do something at that Peace Park intersection. I think we would all agree it needs to be a one-way somehow, whether it's a roundabout, we've got to do something because it's dangerous. I was just mentioning to someone I was talking to that today I heard on the radio, CKNW or something. I get to listen to lots of radio driving up and down the island these days. There's a lady in Vancouver brought an idea from Europe, if you can imagine. This would be shocking to us, I think. that many large cities in Europe have removed all lines, signs, lights, and any markings on intersections. And they call it a shared space program.
Take your chances, I think it's called.
I can tell you from my previous life, I've seen lots of people share that space. Not very healthy. But you know what? They said it reduced their intersection accidents by 50%. I'm not proposing
Because
that.
no one has the right.
Yeah, that's
Because we don't, yeah, nobody has the right of way, so you approach a little more cautiously. But it's interesting that if you hear some of these wild concepts.
But it still doesn't do traffic calming along Cumberland Road. Like I've lost one of the big old trees on our head from people driving too fast in winter conditions and killing the tree by hitting it more than once. And there's some way of, if there was a tree planted that would slow down traffic on, it's like as soon as they go past the 50K, I mean, when you guys are all leaving town the next time, check and see how fast you're going by the time you hit Hope Road. Most of you are going at least 70, if not faster, right? So it's how do you get it so that people would slow down there? I mean, it's something we've been asking for 6 years, and there's been no response to it.
And if you can find a way, I'm sure there'd be many cities and villages adopt it.
Well, I was thinking of those things with nails on them.
Spike belts.
Speed bumps, really low speed bumps, and speed bumps everywhere.
But even those ones that just rattle, like when you got to let remind people that it should be slowing down. There's kids in the neighborhood.
Meter my water.
I have another question about metering water. It's a small question, but you were saying that when they got the meters in it, was it Royston, that they discovered a bunch of leaks and stuff like that. So what happens if your house, if there's a leak in the system into your house and you've gone on metering, how long does it take for the leak to get fixed? And do you still have to be paying that level that's being read on your meter?
Well, the meter will be on your property line. So if there's a leak, it's on your property line, and you'll pay for the extra water until you fix your leak.
Oh, really?
What it will show us, though, if the leak is on village lines, it won't show up as the total amount of meter usage for all the residents and businesses will be less than the amount of water we're putting out of our dam. What does that tell you? It's
Okay.
going into the ground, and
We already
believe me,
know that.
I'm well aware that we've got lots of that too.
But then how is the village going to actually fix that? So we all get meters, and if
Yeah,
they're
we're
still
parties.
leaking
If
every
it's on
winter-
your side, you're gonna fix
I
it.
know, but if it's on your side.
It's
what's
called
the village
increasing the
gonna do?
water rates and the things that we have to do to fix it.
Jacked up our reach.
Well,
We're paying for it then, anyway.
But is there a reason why, if we're so low on the income to manage our sewer and water, which came out in the spring budget, that it had been underfunded for years, why then the council is wanting to wait until the year after the election to do the substantial increase? It's like a smaller increase next year and then a huge increase in 2009 after the election.
well, you can put the election consideration into it, but the reality was, the proposal was to raise it all next year. And council decided that would be a pretty hard hit for people to take in one shot.
And I think it was 3 years ago, I suggested you do it $10 a year.
So, yes.
I hear lots about water and water rates and everything. There is a way we can save money. It's a little bit bizarre, but we can blow the dams, pull all the pipes out of the ground, and have everybody build a concrete cistern. And then somebody can start up a business and come around and fill your cistern, and we can go back to a sewage system that gets pumped out. Now, you're saying, oh, you're being ridiculous, but just think about it. They do it on the prairies. Everybody has a water cistern, and they buy water and have it put in the cistern until the cistern gets lower and it's refilled. I bet you that would be astronomical compared to, us trying to fix our dam, fix our water system, and deliver everybody water and sewer. I don't think I'd want to buy water for a cistern system.
The reality is, you've had, compared to other communities now, very low water rates, very low sewage rate. Your property values have gone up astronomically in the last while, and we've done what we can to reduce the rate so that you won't pay as high taxes as other places. But there's somewhere along the line, we pay for that. there's an infrastructure that's failing. We've all known that for a number of years. And I think it's crunch time. We've been hoping there would be some means of having money fall out of the sky to pay for it. I'm not suggesting we've done anything right. Maybe we should have bit the bullet 3 or 4 years ago and just banged everything up to where...
Why did our checks also go up so high, $250 a year or not?
Your taxes? They went up that high because we reduced the rate. If we'd have left it alone, the way the assessment is, your taxes would be astronomical.
They always do that. They always change the mill rate down and they put the house prices up.
But I think your taxes have gone up on average less than other communities around here. Comox just went up 10%. And they've got a lot better base than we do.
But theirs includes their water, garbage, and sewer in their taxes. Ours doesn't. It's a whole separate ballgame.
10% is still 10% increase.
Yeah, but next year it's going to be like 150% just on water and sewer.
That doesn't represent 10% or 150% of your whole tax base.
I'd like to say that wife and I came out here from North Battleford, small city, 15,000. We were astounded at the water rate, the cost of the water, sewage, garbage. Now, there's no difference in water between North Battleford and Cumberland, or sewage between North Battleford and Cumberland, and garbage. It's all the same. We were paying back there, we were paying as much as 1 month as we paid here for a year almost. So,
it's very low.
I mean, they were paying $35 for garbage pickup for, that's just garbage pickup.
Another question about that new bylaw that came in where it says that residential or commercial or lot must be responsible for maintenance of the boulevard and sidewalk in front of their place. What is the cost to the village of actually maintaining the boulevards and the sidewalks? And then I want to know, is the village going to go around removing all the dandelions and noxious weeds off the boulevards before they make the individuals look after them? Because then I presume that they're not going to be cleaning Dunsmuir Street or any of that anymore either, other than without actually building it to people who benefit from it, who have.
Strange idea to put forth, and that is that we have, it seems that Cumberland has a history of sort of do-it-yourself, and maybe we know that for the most part it's actually labor that costs the most to do all this stuff. So maybe we should start thinking about or proposing doing some of this infrastructure work and other cleanup things ourselves in terms of volunteer groups and whatever. And just something to think about to help reduce.
It's not a bizarre idea at all. Where you might meet some flack is with union contracts. We still have to keep within that with liability and risk management in this modern world today, that everything you do seems to carry a risk. There's an insurance company out there who wants some money. But it's a good idea. More volunteerism.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the clearing of the
Yeah.
bank. I know lots of guys who just love to dig holes. I mean, I
I think it'd be great.
Can't get the jobs
No, I
up.
like to.
I'm trying to get
more
more
jobs
jobs
here.
here, not
We're
get less
certainly
jobs.
beautification where we have people can take an area and look after some flowers or something. I think it's wonderful ideas.
But this is actually where it's mandated that you have to be responsible for the boulevard in front of your place. And if you don't clear your snow or clean the garbage or mow the lawn, the village can come and do it and then add the cost to your property taxes and charge.
I don't think snow clearing is part of the boulevard care.
Yes, it is. It says it in there.
That's pretty standard anywhere I live.
It's standard, and the point is, we're not looking to be big brother coming to beat up on everybody in the neighborhood, but you all know that we've had some properties that have been a little less than desirable as far as appearance, and the programs have started, have really started cleaning Cumberland up, and people are starting to look out for their yard to see the neighbor picking up, and it's very difficult. We've had experiences in the past where the village has taken people to court over messy yards and lost because you don't have the appropriate bylaws, so you have to make them extremely tight. Yeah, sorry.
Well, speaking of boulevards, I've experienced some frustration about dogs in this town. And I understand the law is that all dogs should be kept in fenced yards, and if they're out, they need to be on leash with their human. And I see dogs running around loose all the time. They come into our yard and chase the cats and leave their mark all over the place, and especially out on the boulevards. So when you're out mowing the lawn, you're going over that. And I've called the animal control a couple of times, and it seems like they're really understaffed. They don't seem to respond. I think actually I ended up just leaving a message with the fire department, and then they got to the animal. Well, it was days before they showed up in the van, and you know, the particular dog that I was complaining about at that time, you know, was long gone. So I mean, there seem to be regular dogs that get out and make the rounds, but you know, I'm really frustrated because it seems like there's no real control, and people just do what they want with the dogs.
All what you say is completely valid, and my wife and I, we don't have animals, we're doing the same cleanup all the time. But again, this is common in all communities. It's improved, believe it or not, in the past short while with the dog management.
The main street is the worst.
But it's certainly not cured. And yes, they're short-staffed. We're well aware of that. We've got a combination, as you know, of fire chief, bylaw officer, and animal control. Because we don't have the budget to add more people to it. We're short-staffed in public works, so that we can't get to all those things we'd like to get to. But we're trying to just keep our head above water until we can have better days. And Cumberland has had the tenacity to do that for 40 years. And hopefully we're moving towards better times. I can't argue with what you say, it's exactly right.
It's all about responsible pet owners, right? I mean,
how do you legislate common sense?
I guess we just need to encourage everybody to carry their little baggies.
you know, I have a quarter of an acre fenced off with a big kennel in it, and I keep my dogs in there. I still don't allow them on my yard because that's where my family is, right? So I had a lady just a little while ago walking her dog, and it left its deposit, and I pulled right up to her on my way in my driveway, and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am," I said, "I hope you're going to take that with you." And she just looked at me and walked away. So what do you do?
And I've seen people take their dogs out at night for a walk, loose, no leash or anything, and just because they don't want their dogs to do the business in their yard.
Right.
So they
So
just take
carry
them
a
out.
bucket and a shovel if you don't want to use a bag, right?
Yeah.
And
You don't.
that bylaw says you're not allowed to put it in the garbage.
Right, that was my point. Then what do you do with it? If
You're not allowed
people
to
do, you can't put animal waste in your garbage anymore.
Just
That's what-
compost it and have a separate compost pile, not the one for your fruits
Do you
and
think-
vegetables. Compost it. We've done it for a long, long
But if
time.
we can't get people to pick up waste off the boulevards, do you think
We're gonna get them to
we're gonna
compost
get them
it.
to compost?
Yeah.
I'll get the garbage.
I think you should just
wing it at them.
put it in garbage.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
when they're
Okay.
talking about animals.
I was gonna say that this meeting was from 5:30 till 7, and
Yes.
I came and I like to participate in the whole process, but I'd like to leave now, and aren't we supposed to wrap this up? And I don't feel like leaving in the middle of the conversation.
Okay, and that's a fair comment. I'll wrap it up, but I also didn't want to say it's 7 o'clock. No, you can't ask your question, we're gone.
So that's why I
want to
instead of
show
making you say it.
we're trying to be available to deal with it. Go ahead, then we'll,
Oh, no, I don't know.
you sure?
No, it's just about, in the city now, everyone's very well trained with their bags.
I
Yes,
noticed
they
that.
are.
So it's just about getting people.
Education.
Sidewalks, I want to make a town. I walk in the morning through the back road. My wife packs her little fireplace shovel with her. Even though we're walking, you know, on the bottom trail, a lot of people walk on there. And you can just see pile after pile after pile. So they won't even kick dirt over it, you know. So again, you know, we just face the same old thing. It's people, manners, good taste. But I'm not kidding you. She takes a garbage bag and a shovel with her every morning. garbage bag for litter, and a shovel to shovel the crap in the bush. And
Okay,
just a fun job.
we'll meet, how about if we do 2 more comments and then we'll wrap it up as was requested.
I walk 9 kilometers a day up to town, back to my house, and the sidewalks in town are covered with dog shit most of the time. I mean, not just completely covered, but there's 2 or 3 different ones all the time on the main
Again,
street.
it's resource, it's having the resources.
No,
But that would be now
Where are they
responsible.
coming, I mean, where
Well,
are the
that's
dogs
the new
coming
bylaw,
from?
will take care of that.
But then I think you need to find out what it costs.
I just wanted to put in a word for cat shit too.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty, it's
tell me,
a
my
problem.
wife.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
But you still have to figure out how much it's gonna cost to send them out to do that, so that you can have, so everybody knows if the dog catcher has to come out and clean up dog shit off of your front porch, that's another,
it's gonna
you
cost
know,
you this.
$16.25 on your property.
Point's been made, got you. Final question.
I want to apologize for interrupting earlier and when I was speaking. And I want to congratulate you and council for hosting this event. I really think this is a good move, and judging from the response, I would suggest that people are interested in more of this kind of gathering. And I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I know it's been anticipated that we do one quarterly or thereabouts, but there seems to be a lot that has come up tonight that can't be spoken about in this kind of context and needs more consideration. So
Well, thank you, and it serves us too. This is a good forum, because in a formal council meeting, you can't always take the time just to sit and chat back and forth. So I certainly have heard nothing but compliments from council to say they'd like to carry this on. So they're very supportive of it, and certainly we'll be looking at quarterly until it looks like we need more. Why not?
I like the
It's
time.
not costly. We can sit and do this. It's not a big deal.
I like the time window of it as well, because, you know, as long as we go, so we don't give up our evening to do it, but we come between work and a later supper. So,
Okay. So thank you very much for coming out. It's good to show the interest. We appreciate it.
Terry, they were without the bylaw for quite a while.